Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I am here continuing with my series of the interviews, talking to these wonderful people in our industry. And I have two amazing guests today for you, the charming Glenn and the beautiful Vivienne. So thank you very much for being here and sharing your life with the world.
That's okay.
You ask the questions and we'll try and give you the answers.
Okay, well, so then I would really like to go all the way back to the very, very beginning, before you even knew of one another. And how did you start it? Vivienne, maybe you can go first. The
Okay.
first steps.
I first started because my parents had a dance studio.
Right.
So although I took all my medals at a very early age, I had no intention of competing. But then I think I did my first comp as a medalist at about 15 years old. And we won out of the blue. And of course that made me think, oh, I quite like that, so maybe I will do a bit more. And it really continued from there. Although I had big gaps where I didn't dance at all, various stages, you meet boyfriends who don't dance and then you don't dance, so it goes on.
But when you said in the very beginning you didn't intend to do competition, so why was that? You just thought of fun about dancing?
No, I really wasn't that bothered. My parents certainly didn't push me. I was horse mad. And I had my own pony, and I used to go to all the pony things around Birmingham, which is where I'm from. So of course I was more interested in going in horsey life at that stage.
So what's about you, Len? How did you start?
Well, as a young boy, I tried everything. Cub, Scout, everything young people can do, I tried to do. And then my mother said to me, she loved dancing, why don't you go to a dancing school? Now in those days, and it's a long time ago now, everybody went dancing.
Right.
All young people went dancing. So I went to one school which happened to be the school of the British professional champion, Joyce Hayward.
Right.
And I went into her school with my cousin to learn to dance. And she said, how old are you? And I said, 12. She said, you can't come in here till you're 14, because the schools were absolutely heaving. So then I went to another school, asked how old I was, and I said 14.
Right? You did a lie.
Yeah.
And this teacher, he said to me, can you dance? I said, well, in the youth club I could waltz. So he said, show me. So I did. Forward, side, close. I need to speak to your parents. You're going to be champions. Right? Oh, wow. So my parents went to see him. He said, right, they've got talent. They're going to be champions. And I'll let them come in the studio, have one private lesson a week. They can come in the studio whenever they can. And it will cost them, in today's money, 13.5p.
Oh, wow. So, but you had already a partner then? You went
with
the
my
partner.
cousin, yeah. Yeah. But the thing was, what we didn't know, he said that to everybody that went in that was under 16, because he wanted to build up a business of juniors, and he did. For example, Frank Venables, he became a world champion. I became a world champion. A number of people all went to his school. So Michael Barr, another one. So that's how I started. And what really got me into it was like Vivienne, a medal competition. And I'd only just taken my bronze. And it was for under golds. And all the older boys, 18 years old, and all the ones you looked up to in the school, were deciding who could win it and who couldn't. And out of the blue, my partner and I won it. So that got me onto competition dancing.
And was that in London, in the south?
Oh, yes.
So
I'm from Harrow, North London.
Right.
And so I danced with my cousin for a while.
Right. So after that, so you won your medals and you suddenly thought, yes, that's something. And obviously you, and then, so what's happened from them? So that was still beginning, still medal level. So how did you get into higher level?
my father got approached by Bobby Short to say, I've got a boy who's just coming out of junior, he's a champion, and he would be the right height for your daughter, because we'd known Bobby and the family for many years. Could they have a tryout? So that happened, and I ended up dancing with this boy, and we did quite well, and it went on from there.
Right.
But yeah, so that got me into competitions in the first place.
But open already competitions
yes,
already started.
but very low grade,
Right.
sort of, I suppose, pre-am type things, or novice ones, really.
Can I make it clear? In those days, if you did a medal competition, it wasn't like today when it wasn't open. All the competitions were open to everyone.
Right,
Yeah.
okay.
So you didn't just do a medal competitions for a particular association.
Right.
They were open. All comps were open.
It was just referred to a
You
level.
just go,
Right.
you just go into, like my first one was in another, passed away now, Ken Bateman and Blanche Ingalls school,
Right, yeah.
which was about 15 miles from where we lived. So, and comps were open.
Right. So then, of course, you said you going. So you had your amateur career. How was that? How did your roads cross? So who is going to tell from this?
Len can tell you that story.
Because
Well,
you
if
had
I
another
start-
partner right before. Did you have another
Yes.
partner?
Yes, the girl I was junior champion with and amateur champion
Right.
with, she was from the school that I started in.
Right.
Although I had a number of different girls when you're young, you
Yes. of
partners.
course.
So then, well, I didn't know Vivienne Hawley, and she was dancing.
At that stage, as an amateur,
Yeah.
I was dancing with Byron Charlton.
Oh right.
Right.
Yeah.
So Byron and I both lived in the Midlands, and we didn't really come to London very often, but we did most of the big competitions. So I knew of Len Armstrong because he was high up. We were quite low down.
You weren't together long,
We weren't together very long.
so let me cut you short.
So you knew of him and you didn't know of Vivienne. How is
Well,
that possible?
No, I knew of her,
Right.
but I'd never spoken to her.
Oh, right.
It's
okay.
very different to now, where all the couples go to the same
Yes,
competitions.
yes.
They all know each other, maybe not that closely, they don't necessarily speak to them, but they recognise them from being on the floor.
Mhm.
Now, I recognise Len Armstrong and Elaine Welsh, they were a couple who'd been around forever, but that was it. They'd won junior youth, no,
Well,
not
the year
youth.
where I first really knew of her was the year that I won the Blackpool Amateur Championship.
Right.
And this new couple that had only been together a few months got in the final and came seventh.
It was a 7-couple final.
Yeah.
Don't say it like that. We did get in the final.
Well, I said you got in the
All
final.
right, okay.
So I knew of her then. And then I turned professional. Vivienne separated from Byron and went out of dancing.
After that final.
I did, yes,
Oh.
because Byron and I were only a dancing partnership. I was a couple of years older than him, and he felt very juvenile to me. I felt quite grown up as a lady who'd been rushing around working independently, and suddenly
Well, tell the truth, you were a sophisticated fashion model
All
in
right.
the Midlands
I
there.
did hear that
Yeah,
actually. Someone I
well,
went to
a
ask
long
was
time
that
ago.
you were a model.
Yeah,
I
yes,
would
I
like you to
was,
bring
yeah.
on that a little bit
Well,
later.
I was slim in those days, you see. But
So he was like a young boy to Vivienne walking her. Anyway, so then I split with my partner after a year as professional. We'd been together since we were 13 years old, and you know, we just fell apart. So my teacher, who was Elsa Wells, the original organiser of the International, said, "Have you thought of Vivienne Hawley as a partner?" I said, "Oh no, she'll be too tall for me because she danced with us." I said, "No." And then she said, "Oh, I'll make some," and that was the end of it. Then I went to Blackpool that year looking for a partner. Sat in the front row because I had a front row seat with the programme, ticking off all the girls.
That he fancied.
that could dance. And then I walked round the back, and Vivienne was there, and she hadn't been to Blackpool before, and she was very friendly with a very top couple, John and Betty Wesley. In fact, she used to cheer them on against me, right?
I hope there will be no divorce after this conversation.
So anyway, I saw her and I went up and stood behind her. She was talking to them at the back of the seats in Blackpool, and I stood behind her trying to see how tall I was and anything. And then, she said, oh, not sure. So I said to her, hello, I suppose you know I'm looking for a partner. And she said, no. Well, she wouldn't. She'd been out of it.
I'd been out of dancing at that stage for a couple of years because I had a boyfriend who didn't dance. So you end up not going to competitions. I didn't know what was going on in the dance world at that stage. And I only went to Blackpool that year because Philip Jackson and Janet Harrison were dancing in the amateur Latin. Oh, I can't remember. And they were going up to Blackpool for a couple of days from Birmingham. Would I like to go with them? And I went, oh, that might be quite nice. Go and have a little look for a couple of days. So I went to Blackpool with them. Just to watch them, really, support them.
Fate to me.
Yeah. So I said to Vivienne, well, I'm looking, how about having a tryout? Well, I said, well, next week or the week after bank holiday, I'm still working as a qualified engineer. So I said, well, I'll come up on bank holiday and we can have a tryout.
My parents still had the studio, so that was the availability of having a tryout where nobody would see us.
Of course, yes.
But when I got home, I thought, why am I waiting? Because already there was an attraction.
Oh.
Right? Yeah.
So Vivienne was right. The girls you fancy.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, he hasn't changed, Niguala. You know what he's like now.
I know.
Anyway,
don't blush.
So I phoned her up, and she was in the lounge of her room, and her boyfriend was with her, and her mother came in with the phone and said, "Oh, Len Armstrong wants you." Oh, and she went out. So when we arranged to go up there. And her boyfriend said, "Who's Len Armstrong?" And she said, "Oh, he's just a merchant that I do fashion shows for."
Oh, really? Oh,
had to think quickly, he did.
Right. So we'd arranged to go up. The problem for Vivienne was her mother was going to this dancing school, and her boyfriend was driving her mother down, and he happened to say, "Oh, Len Armstrong phoned it." And her mother said, "Oh, yes, he wants to dance with her."
Which dropped me right in it, because the boyfriend didn't know anything about it.
So that went out of the window. So then you said, "Oh, David Douglas, you know David Douglas? He was Latin champion and everything. He was driving back from Blackpool, so she phoned him up and said, call in at our house." And he called in.
Because I hadn't danced for 2 years, and all of a sudden I'm about to have a tryout with an ex-world champion, and I'm thinking, oh my God. So David Douglas very kindly came to the studio, and we had a few practices just to get my legs going, having not danced, before Len came up for this tryout. So with great trepidation he came up, and
because I'd never changed partners for years, I said to my teacher, Elsa Wells, "How will I know if it works?" She said, "Oh, you'll know, you'll feel it." Well, as soon as I got with Vivienne and we just walked around the floor, danced a bit, it felt right. So that's how we started to dance. And
did you do then ballroom and Latin, or just ballroom?
we did ballroom only at that stage. A bit later on we did Latin, but
but only for shows and
not really
I got in the final of the amateur championship
in Latin.
Amateur Latin. No, not in amateur, the professional. Came fifth in the pro Latin.
In Blackpool.
Yeah. Anyway, so we had this tryout.
It's changed a lot since then.
And we started to dance. Now, with the girl that I came out of the amateur field, you couldn't dance in championships for 1 year.
It's just a rule.
There was a rule. Amateurs couldn't go amongst the I don't know whether it was they were frightened they were going to beat them or whatever, but anyway. So after that, that's the next year, we danced, and we couldn't make the final of any ballroom championship when we were allowed to dance. So what was strange, when I got with Vivienne and we started to dance, within 3 months we got in the first final of the UK professional championship. Then we got in the final of Blackpool.
Crazy.
But by this time we'd got married.
Right. So the attraction continued.
It continued, yes. We got married, and then we were shocked how well we did.
How quickly.
Yeah.
So did you move then to live up to Birmingham?
No,
No,
we
that's
got married
strange.
and we lived in North London.
Oh,
in
so
London.
you
down,
moved down
yes,
to
I
London.
moved
We lived down here for
Right.
4 years.
Right.
But because I had a very good job, and there was a large cheque every month, it was difficult to give that up for dancing that you didn't know, because you couldn't earn anything as an amateur in those days.
Yes.
So I still had this goal. What happened there was we stopped to have a baby, didn't we?
We decided that because we'd done so well so
Yeah,
quickly, if
we
we
were
were not careful, and we'd seen it happen with previous partnerships, couples, they ended up not having a family, and we didn't want that. We wanted a family as well. So we worked it out that if we had a family as soon as possible, we were still young enough to be able to make a comeback after that. So really that's what happened. So within 12 months of being married, we had Julie, our first daughter. Then it took quite a while to get back onto the competitive floor, because obviously during that time that you're off, everybody's improved and you haven't. I put on an awful lot of weight during that time, and even when I'd had the baby, it was a struggle we practiced every day, but it was still a struggle. And we got back onto the floor just before Blackpool. We did a couple of comps, and it felt like the whole world was coming at us at 90 miles an hour. It's a really strange feeling, because you think you're experienced enough.
Done it all your life, and
You would cope with that okay, but we really found that really strange. So of course then again we're living in London. There's one set of grandparents who will help with babysitting when we wanted to go off to practice or to go and have a lesson, or but then not so long after that, I can't think how long ago, we then decided we would never get to the top if we didn't practice more.
and take trips abroad. We were offered
we
so
were
much
being
work.
invited on trips, which of course is so exciting at first, and you've never done it, so you think, oh gosh, we're missing out on this. We've got babysitters available, but so we really
Because of my job.
We'd got your job, a little baby, and we wanted to do competitive
At the
and
highest level.
So you couldn't go to those trips.
we
You-
couldn't do them at first.
no,
We had
no.
to turn them
So,
down.
so what I decided I'd take a chance, I'd give my notice in, and by this time, at a young age, I became the chief designer for the company. And I had a staff under me and a secretary under me and all that, and a large cheque every month. And I said to Vivienne, look, we've got to give this up, because my main ambition was dancing.
To be a full-time pro.
Yeah.
That was, the aim for both of us then.
Yeah. So I packed my job. I had to give 4 months' notice in. And we moved up. I moved up to Birmingham. We sold our house in.
My parents were quite happy to basically give us the studio to help us, whereas we couldn't find anywhere down in London that we could
Too
afford.
expensive.
It was a church hall, but there were big holes in the floor, or you couldn't have it every second week because they'd got the Boy Scouts there.
And it was much more convenient.
And it
so,
was easier.
yeah.
So we moved up to
Moved
Birmingham.
up to Birmingham, and I'd said to Vivienne, it's going to take 2 or 3 years before we're earning the same sort of money. as I was getting every week. Because although that, we were still doing shows in England and things like that, so we were earning. Anyway, within a couple of months, I was getting much, much more. And
Amazing. Happened very quickly.
well, we put a bar in the studio. There wasn't one. We started to do it. We did it really professional, like we'd seen in other countries. They did it. We had staff working in the bar, staff taking the money, staff and all in uniforms, mini skirts, tank top, same colour shirt. And
it was going to be a social studio as well as competitive.
Yeah.
That was what we were hoping for. And the competitive side built up so fast because there weren't that many teachers, especially of our fairly young age, teaching in that area then. And so, of course, we got many couples from up north coming down to the Midlands. And
but
then also,
mainly it was how we did so well financially was from the social school. So we did it all wrong. We started up and we said,
with
well,
no experience of teaching beginners,
right, so
none at all.
None at all. So we started up. We'll do some waltz and a bit of quick step, and then we'll do some cha-cha in the first lesson.
On the first class,
right.
an hour and a half class, we were going to teach all these about four
But a 15-minute break so they could go to the bar. Well, anyway, first class we advertised, we got 90 people. That was on the reputation because we kept the name of the school the same as. So people who'd gone there when everybody went dancing sent their youngsters, not kids, youth. Oh yeah, go to Hawley's. So on that, we got 90. Within 3 weeks, we'd lost 60 of them.
We didn't realise we had to go down to their level.
Well,
because the night we started, Len put his arms up and I'm there as if I'm about to do a comp. And we frightened them all off. They didn't want to know that we'd been, you know, sort of top competitors. They weren't interested.
Well, we didn't even tell them, did we, at first? And then we realised we'd be how we were, because I tried to speak so correctly and so everything wrong. And we went to a few of the big schools in the IDTA, as it is now, to see what they did. Then we decided how we would do it. And once we decided that, and once we were laughing and joking with the people and everything, well, for 10 years it absolutely boomed. And in fact, we did so well, after about 15 years, we decided we didn't want to do that anymore. We just wanted to, so we shut the school down. We'd done really well.
Did you sell it or you just fully shut it down?
We just said we're not going to touch that. We'll just concentrate on private lessons and competitors, which we both did at that stage. And then it's interesting because someone you've interviewed, Robin Shaw, we made a pact years before. If any of us sold the studios, we could go to theirs,
each other's studio
to teach. So then Robin and Rita came and taught in the studio. So there was only Robin and Rita. And then, were you still teaching then? I think you a little bit, but not much. So then we were there. So, and that's how life was going. We were financially sound. And by that time...
Were you still competing though at that time?
No, we stopped after...
Not long after we moved up to Birmingham to take over the studio, my father unfortunately passed away. So, of course, with learning something off my mother of how to run the business, and she used to go in every day, which was good for her. She wasn't teaching. She used to look after all the financial things and on the desk taking the money. And then...
get back onto the competition.
All right, okay, go. Right. We also decided, because my dad died, I decided I didn't really want our daughter being an only one. Right. I would like her to have a sister. So, a baby, you know, sibling. So we then decided, well, okay.
We said we'll do the international. And this was happening with both daughters, actually, that we have now. We do
the international, so it's a bit of
after we've done the international, the first one, we said we'd try for a baby, and it happened relatively quickly. And then the second one, we said we'd do the international, and we got in the final of the international, and then we stopped. So then I was just teaching, judging, and then starting, like you do, on what we call now the Sunday circuit, doing all judging, all those competitions, and then
Well, so then 12 months later, Stacey was born. So now we've got another little baby to cope with.
it's not 12 months from October to
No, well,
August.
9 months later, but then it's 3 months getting yourself organised.
So we got that. So then, what happened then? Blackpool decided to run the British National Championship, or the close, as they were said there.
So that was the first time before, up to that, there was
No close
Oh,
champ, no.
that's
Right.
interesting.
1975.
That's interesting.
So we'd gone to Blackpool because another big organisation that's not running now would run a competition there. So we decided we'd try and do a package for this other organisation.
For the studio
And take
people,
studio.
social people.
Do a coach load up there, buy all the tickets, book a hotel, and I realised that was very financially rewarding. So when the BDF and Sonny Binnick had convinced Blackpool to do a closed championship, I thought, oh. So I rang the organiser up, Mrs. Eilert, oh please, can you tell me what you're going to charge for the seats, because I want to bring 2 coach loads up, and I want to make a package. Well, because I was naive about organising, I never thought that organisers needed people to go to competitions and things like that. Anyway, we took 90 odd people up there. It was more, wasn't it? 250 something, and hotel, jam-packed weekend. And it was very financially rewarding, and our people absolutely loved it. And we took them there for a few years. But, well, just before the comp was due to start, Mrs. Eilert, the organiser, rang me up and said, Len, I'd like to invite you to judge this new championship. Well, I was over the moon, shut up, on that floor at Blackpool. Oh, my God. And she said, I thought your people would like to see you out there judging. I said, I couldn't care less about them, what about me?
Yes.
Yeah. So I judged it for, I think, the first 3 years it ran. But in the meantime, we were now more into competitions and all that. And then Vivienne decided she hated judging.
Right.
She did it when we were doing shows and that, but she hated it. If she liked someone, she might prefer their dancing and all things.
I found it very hard
Yeah.
to be honest enough, you know, that yeah, I like them as a person, and you know, maybe I should keep away from it because I really didn't find that easy. So I stopped the judging bit, hated it.
Anyway,
I think
about a year after I wasn't judging the national, did it for 3 years or something, a letter comes to Vivienne asking her to judge the May Festival. Right, so she says, I'm not doing it. I said, you are. I said, because I want to, and if you don't, they won't. She said, well, I'm not going to do it, and you can ring up and tell them. I said, do your own dirty work. So Vivienne said, think about it. If I say no and you ring up, they might say, would you do it then? Oh, yes. I'm desperate to do Blackpool. But... So I ring up, tell the organiser, Mrs. Eilert again, Vivienne doesn't like judging. She said, oh, thank you very much, Lynn. So I said, has asked me to ring and say it. She says, OK, Len, thank you very much, and put the phone down.
So she didn't ask Len to judge, he was mortified.
But a couple of years later she did, and then they asked me to be team captain, which I did 13 years.
Wow, on the row?
Yeah.
On the row.
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing.
And 12, used to do it at the National as well. I did 25 years. 25 team.
It must be difficult to prepare all these, the thinking,
really
when you
difficult.
prepare the team and all these coming on the floor.
Well, in the end, I said to, by then it was Jill Mackenzie, and I said, look, you need to get a new team captain, because we used to do all the things that go on, and when you've done 24 of them,
As you say, it's so hard to come up with new ideas. And also you're working with quite prima donnas.
Oh yeah,
you know, they didn't, you know, one wanted to do this and the other one didn't, and I want to wear red and you want to wear blue, and
all sorts of things.
You know.
So she said, would you do one more and then we'll sort it out? Okay. So I did the last one in 91, and that's a little bit, not because of the team match, and I judged, because in those days the team captain judged every year.
Right.
Now I judged a lot of years until my daughters started dancing.
And then you obviously couldn't.
Or then well, what I did, I used to say to any organiser, if you'd like to invite me to judge, please invite me and I will make the decision whether I do it or I let my daughter do it. And that's how I stopped doing it, because Blackpool's wonderful to judge. But now I think I've judged it in the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, the 2002. That's a lot of time. So,
and also when your daughters are dancing, that's very difficult.
Yes.
Because you have to take the partner's feelings into consideration, because obviously if you're saying, well, I'm judging this year so you won't be able to dance, it's a bit unfair to the partner as well.
Yes.
And his family, they've paid all their money for years for their
so
child
I stopped
to
judging
dance,
that, but I didn't stop me judging anything else.
No, of course.
So, and then, well, when we first started in Birmingham, I was taking the sort of lower down couples, they were getting quite good results. And so gradually people from further afield came.
Started taking the first overseas ones you got.
Yeah, and people that lived in London travelling up from London to have lessons, and I was quite stunned at all that and think how lucky I am.
Just before we move further, where the part where you then somehow moved back to live to London, I want to return a little bit to those modelling years, please.
God.
It's just something really interesting. You know, how was that? How did that happen? And
it happened because I got approached by a modelling agency in Birmingham to say, are you interested in modelling? And I said, well, I've never thought of it, you know. They said, well, we would like you to do a course where it's, I forget the name they called it. It was, I suppose, teaching you how to be ladylike, how to sit, how to get out of a car ladylike, not showing all your undies and all sorts of things. And then they sent me for an audition to the Ideal Home exhibition. And they said, you won't get it, but it's good experience to see what goes on. So they sent me for this audition and I got picked. And they chose about 12 girls. It's very different to how modelling is now.
It must have only been 13, innit?
No, there were lots. But nowadays they have maybe 50 girls doing a show and they all wear one outfit. In my day, it was, they would have a show with maybe 10 girls and you wore 6 outfits each. So it was a bit of a rough and tumble, you know. You got changed in your first outfit, went out in whatever order, and then you rushed behind stage, and if you were lucky, the dressers were there to help you, and you got out of that outfit and into the next, and then you went on.
But you became one of the top models, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. I was very lucky.
Yeah.
And it was there was a group in this agency of about maybe a dozen of us, different ages, different types of girls, different sizes. We weren't all stick thin like they are now. And we did shows up and down the country, all over. And I mean, that was brilliant time. I loved doing that. But that's when I said I was a very independent lady and I was driving all over the place, going and doing work like that before I got with Len. So I loved all that.
So is that how you learned to do makeup? Because I always remember from the very first day when I came to London and saw you or had lessons with Len and you were in the studio, you always had amazing, immaculate makeup.
I suppose so, but you don't know that that's... I
Yeah.
never ever come down in the morning without my makeup on. I would never ever go shopping without makeup on. So I know a lot of people don't, they think that's
So-
mad, but
Can I butt in here? So you
Yeah.
can imagine, I'm in Blackpool. I'm looking for a partner, and I see this beautiful,
Model.
elegant lady
Yes.
standing there, and everybody smoked and doing it so elegantly. I was smitten, wouldn't I?
Of course.
Yeah.
No, that's very true.
very strange.
Do you miss those years of modeling? Do you think you could have maybe become like, top model?
No.
Say what we did.
What?
Because you were a successful model and the model agency you worked for, then when models started to dance and not just
Oh,
walk on
right.
and off, she contacted Vivienne and me, and we used to organise,
We used to choreograph fashion
shows.
shows.
Wow, that's
Now, that was great
amazing.
fun.
And
I
we
love
did
doing that.
what was the one you said you did?
Ideal Home
We
Exhibition.
did the Idea Home
And
exhibition.
we did that several years running.
Yeah.
But, that was sort of after my career, and I was then in dancing with Len. But the agency used us, both of us,
A lot.
to do that, and that was fun. I enjoyed that.
And we did
you know.
old time musicals and all sorts of things.
Absolutely, all sorts. And we did we had to try and think of something different each time, because they would have like a setting. So there'd be a scene where they were doing cowboy boots, so you chose something to go with that. And you
the
had to
music
choose
and
all the
everything.
music and everything for it. Yeah, they were good days.
So we couldn't compete when we were doing it, because
Well,
we were
of
with the
course, yes.
school and everything else,
Yeah.
children and everything
And we
else.
also, when we were having gone to Birmingham to try and practice more and get higher up the ladder from being in the bottom half of the six, suddenly we weren't practicing every day because there was so much else
And we
going on.
knew, didn't we?
And I think we realised
Realised
that,
we
maybe we
probably
wouldn't
wouldn't make it
So,
because we couldn't
we-
put the effort in.
Yeah.
And when you're doing very well financially and you're very busy,
Yeah.
it's very hard to
Yeah.
go and practice in all the
We'd
time.
say, oh, we'll do 2 lots of practice tomorrow. But you never did.
Can't
There
be,
was
you've gotta
always
be-
something got in the way, But I mean, as you know, we've had a very happy life through dancing. We've had a wonderful life through dancing. I always tell the couples we had so many fabulous trips.
Which
And
I
it-
would like to hear one of them,
Ah.
some funny trip.
Well, you see, again, it's very different to now. In our day, when we first started getting invited, it was mostly European trips.
Yeah.
So you were going to Belgium or Holland or France
Germany,
or
yeah.
Germany. Or
But then we got a trip,
our first super duper trip.
was to South Africa.
Oh.
Now, in
This-
those days, South Africa was doing quite
a
well.
long
and
way away. And
a guy came up to us at the British.
we'd had a bad result.
We'd had
hadn't
a bad result.
And he came
what
up,
we
he said,
called a bad
"Oh,
result.
my name's Jimmy Johnson, I organise for South Africa. We'd like to invite you to South Africa."
And we were,
I said to him, "What, me? We just had a terrible result." He said, "No, but we like
your
like to do it."
dancing.
So they invited us there. Now, at this stage, we'd started to do some Latin with Nina Hunt.
Right.
So we had some choreography, weren't really doing much. So I when they sent I said, "Yes, okay, yes, we can do it. We'll do ballroom, do the shows," and we did a cha-cha as the 5th number, but no Latin teaching, because we don't feel that, because they had good couples getting in the finals of the Worlds and
South
the British.
Africa was doing very well with Latin in those
Right,
days.
yeah. So we get there, and it's lovely. And, we were having a lesson with Wally Laird, and he'd just come back from South Africa, and he said, "Listen, boy," he had a cigar like this, "listen, boy," he called everybody boy, "they'll offer to take you out." He said, "If they offer you to take you out, say yes. You can spend all your life in a studio, they're the same anywhere in the world." So we thought, oh. So, no Latin, and they offer us. So, we get there the first day, we do a show, I think the second day, and then we have to start teaching. And the first lesson that comes in was a couple called Peter Van Veener and Rosalie Meister, who had just made the grand final of the professional Latin.
And we saw them walk in and went,
And we said no
"Oh
Latin.
my
And they said,
God."
"No, but you're in the hub of it. You know what's going on. So they said, just have a look at us, and if you've got any, what's the latest things? Well, luckily we'd had Walter Laird and Nina Hunt for Latin, so we'd got sort of routines, the latest
And
things.
again, I knew my steps. I didn't know Len's, and vice versa.
So we mentioned this top
So
couple.
we said, well, we'll take this piece of Van Rieden and Rosalie Meister, but only together,
Yeah.
not doing it separately.
When they walked in, we couldn't say no.
No.
And then, while the trip was good, I mean, they offered to take us on
They took
safari,
us
and we went on
everywhere.
safari, and
Fantastic.
that was
Their hospitality was unbelievable. We had a wonderful trip, and we made friends with people that we're still friendly with to this
we
day.
see at Blackpool when they come.
You know,
again.
and that's lovely, you know, that you've met them all those years ago.
But
and we
they're
went-
getting older now, aren't they?
They are, but we're not, you're saying, yeah. But also, we did South Africa 11 trips.
Since
Now,
then.
yeah, all very close together, I have to say. We were going 2 or 3 times a year, every year, till we'd done 11 trips. And then South Africa had all the problems with the apartheid,
Yes.
and, you know, that caused quite a lot of trouble. Difficulty going there, working. We had a few strange experiences.
Let me change that and get back to dancing.
Yeah.
All right.
So I
okay.
want is you going to continue about South Africa dancing, or I have a question.
I was going to talk about our dancing and what happened to us
In
when
South
we came
Africa.
back having the baby.
Oh right, okay, let's do that.
So we have never worked so hard in our life. at
This
our
is after
dancing.
the first child.
We were practicing. We were living in London then, still living as still an engineer, and I would drive home and we'd practice every day. I'm getting it wrong. That was to come back. Yeah. Then we moved to Birmingham. Every day we practiced. Every day. If my teacher said do that or this, I tried to do it. So we go to Blackpool, and we said, I said, we'll do the Rising Stars. We'd never done it before, but we'll win that, and everybody will know Armstrongs are back.
But also, you couldn't do the Rising Star if you'd been in the final.
But because we
But
didn't,
because
we'd
we
had the
had 2
baby,
years out, or
it's the
whatever.
top 12 or 24, but anyway.
Okay.
So we do this Rising Stars. Well, like Vivienne said, it was our first comp. We didn't do any little ones beforehand. We decided to go in big.
Okay, all right.
First
I
comp.
remember.
Can't believe how it felt. Now, we'd never worked so hard. So we got in the final. It didn't feel like I hoped it would, or both of us. So we get there and we're waiting for the result. Of course, we're going to be win. Last time we danced at Blackpool, we were in the final. And they called out the winner. They called out the second. They called out the third. They called out the fourth. And we were fifth.
Oh no.
And this is the honest truth. I went back, we've got our baby with us
can
then.
remember that.
I picked up Julie, little baby. What have you done to our dancing career?
Can't really blame her.
But
still.
then I decided you can't blame the judges, although that's your first thing. You blame everyone. What are we doing wrong? And I tried to work out what we were doing wrong, what was happening. And it boiled down for us, I'm not saying it's for everyone, we were trying so hard to do everything right, we stopped being the dancers that we had been. So we danced to the Rising Stars the following year. And we won it. And then we made the final on the Friday at the same time. So we were back in our final mode.
Yes.
And then you've heard the rest of how we decided to stop it. But that was a little thing that couples don't realise. Most judges on the major championship have all been out there. They've all suffered good and bad results. And like some have said to me, oh, it's all right for you. You were this, that and the other. Yeah, Wasn't always like that.
Yeah, so it's good learning lesson that you thought about your dancing, you knew something wrong with dancing, you improved it, and it made it better instead of blaming someone and actually then you just blame and you're not improving.
Well, like I normally say to couples, first thing you blame the judges, then you blame the floor, then you blame the music, then you blame your coaches. The last thing, and if you even think about it, it's not yourself.
Yes, for sure. So, London boy, gone up to Birmingham and decided to come back. So did you miss London so much, or what's the story?
Yeah, well, you see.
What do you mean no? London is beautiful. I'm sure you missed London.
No, it wasn't like that at all. I didn't want to come back.
Oh, really?
No, it was
No,
Stacey and
what
I.
happened? Well, the first couple that ever came to me from London, Kenny Welsh, I think she was
Marion Elaine.
Marion, before they were married. And then we got quite friendly with Kenny. And then Kenny wanted, years later, Assembly was shutting.
Was he still in Liverpool living already in
No, he was living in London.
He was living in
London
London with Marion.
So Kenny, Assembly was shutting, and he didn't like the idea of, any school he went to shut, and he wanted to. So we said, well, if you find somewhere, we'll be sleeping partners with you. We'll advise you of what we did in the school and everything, because we've won one and all that. Oh, right. And in fact, we came down and had a look at a few places with Kenny.
Kenny would find places.
Yeah.
And phone us up and say, well, we found a couple, can you come down? So we'd come down, and some were good, some were not
bad,
so good.
some you couldn't get planning permission for. And then one...
We were still running Birmingham, so...
Yeah, well, doing the competitive side. So then just before one Christmas, I think it was, we get a phone call from Kenny. He said, we found a nice studio. There's 3 couples and we need another one because it's very expensive. Would you be, I've told them I know someone, but I haven't told them who it is. Would you be interested in doing the same, coming down and being a sleeping partner or da-da-da-da-da? So I said, where is it? He said, well, it was Peter Eggleton's school in Cheam. Now, I'd never been there. Oh, he said, and the other couples, I can tell you, David's sitting in his room, Lynn Harmon and her husband, Kenny and Marion, and wanted one more, 25%. So I thought about it, I thought that sounds good. So I said, yes, we'll be 25% in. Right. Then I went into our lounge and said to Vivienne, I've just said we'd be 25%, a lot of money.
I was so shocked because he's not...
I don't do things like that.
Len's not like that normally,
No.
but he shocked me with that one.
So then we were just coming down for meetings. And
We hadn't seen the place.
No,
though.
never been there. So we came down and we looked at it, yeah, fine. And our daughter Stacey was dancing then. Now, when she heard about this and what we were doing, she said, why can't we go and live in London?
She was dancing with an Australian boy that lived in London.
I think you know him.
So yes, so we...
Michael Burton.
Right, yes.
So we, of course, once Stacey realised there might be a chance we would move to London.
Because it all happened.
Because she wanted to move to London.
Because she was born in Birmingham. Julie was born in London.
Oh,
Anyway,
right.
So they nagged me silly, and Vivienne. Come on. Why
We used to come down to these meetings to discuss what we were going to do with Tream, and of course there was such a lot being done. So whilst they were all in the meetings, Stacey and I would drive around looking for somewhere possibly we could live. And we didn't know this area at all. So of course that was a bit of a learning curve. And then one day...
I still said no.
He kept saying, no, we're not moving, forget it. Don't even go looking round, it's crazy.
And then one day I said,
we've been driving around here. And
hang on, before that, I said, okay, we'll move down. Because I was going to bed at night and Vivienne was going, we're going to go... I woke up in the morning, So a man has to give him. So I gave him. So then I'm judging in Denmark. And Hans and Anne Laxholm are there, and Hans is judging, we talk. He said, oh, you're coming down to Cheam, I'm going to work there. I said, well, we're not coming down, you know.
We're sleeping partners, we're going to stay in Birmingham.
Oh, he said. So after the meeting, Vivienne drove round to show me this house. And
we discovered just round the corner.
We didn't know it at the time. This car came round and Hans Laxholm sitting in it. And he was building a house just there. So he said, I thought you said you weren't coming down to London. So that's how we came. And then the studio was fantastic.
It took well. Len possibly a year to stay. It's the best thing we've ever done. But it took him a year.
Women always know better, Len. You should know by
I've learned it, but I'm a man. You know what women think of men.
Yeah, so it is the best thing we did.
So our life in dancing, and this is why a little bit I got into the politics.
Well, yes, because you was president of IDTA, of BDC, and a vice president of WDC.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of titles there, political titles.
Yes, well, what happened there? First of all, when we were running the school, we were running medal tests, and we were putting them in by that.
Hundreds.
Can't tell you, hundreds of them. And I thought, well, they're telling me what I should charge and what I should do. I want to be part of it, because I wasn't doing what they told me to charge. I did what we wanted. So I stood for the executive board, as it was then.
On IDTA, right?
IDTA. It was a bit more that the company secretary there, an icon, John Dilworth, talked to me and chatted to me one time. He suggested I did that because I argued with him about some things and agreed with others. So we go up to the IDTA conference in Birmingham, in Blackpool in those days, in the Spanish Hall. Now, I'm Len Armstrong. I've been junior British and world top driver. Everybody knows Len Armstrong. So in this sea of about 400 dance teachers, what they do is they call the name out and you stand up. So I was sitting near the back. So I stood up and hundreds of dance teachers turned around and looked. I could see from their face, they didn't know who I was. I was stunned.
Oh dear.
And I didn't get voted up.
Oh no.
Then the following year I stood and...
But anyway, the question I have, obviously you had all these very, very important roles as IDTA president, BDC even. I mean, that's like such a difficult job and to have. Obviously, being wife of a person like this, it must be difficult with children and looking after, because he's always would be in meetings and dealing with things, then bringing home that stress. And then how did you cope with all that? I mean, what
I couldn't do it now, but...
but what inspired you to go all that? Did you want to do it?
Apart from the IDTA, that was from the school and everything, and I had no thoughts of anything else. I have had a wonderful, wonderful life out of dancing. Been all around the world, and also in our day, going around the world was a lot less than it is now. It's more difficult. I've got a lovely wife, a lovely family. I wouldn't have met Vivienne if it wasn't for that. Everything that's gone well for me in my life is through dancing. So I wanted to try and put something back.
That's beautiful.
That was the reason. And I wanted to always be on the side, if you like, of the competitors. And the studios, but where it became, I was groomed for the British Dance Council without knowing it. We've talked about Bobby Short. People will know him as the icon he was. He used to meet me and chat to me and everything, and gradually, and he used to say to me, one day it will happen to you. I said, what? He said, you'll be asked to be in a position that you've never ever thought about it, but you're the only one that can do it. And lo and behold, Freddie Bolt was standing down, I'm asked to do it, and why? Because the British Council includes schools and everything. I've run a big successful school, I've been a competitor, I've been a judge, all the things, everything that goes in that. So at first I thought, and then your ego a little bit. Yeah, I quite like that. Now, it didn't do anything for me on the competition side.
Yes.
I'd already judged
Of
Blackpool
course,
and the International 2030, all that. And it is putting, and so that is, I said, yes, I'd stand, and I forget who was standing against me, but I got the job.
How did Vivienne react to that post of yours?
Well, at first she didn't know what it was like, but then...
It does drive you mad. I have to say, I feel for any president of the British Dance Council.
It's a nightmare.
As is Paul Marcus finding out at the moment. It is tough. And it's tough on the family, the wife, whoever. And you have to support them as much as you can. Otherwise, they've got to get out of it. They don't want to do that at that stage. But that is very hard. And there are lots of silly little niggles that come up with it. And you just try and calm them down a bit and, don't worry.
Well, the first thing is you have to learn in a position like that everyone's going to have a go at you because there's nowhere else to go.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And this is what I've said to people that have followed me in that. You're going to get the brunt of everything. I said, because where else do they go? So you get all that. But my days used to be, I would be in my office from 6:30 in the morning here till 9. And then I'd leave to come to the studio. And then I'd do a day at the studio, and then you'd be back in the office, and you get phone calls at night about stupid things and don't even apply to you. And then I found after, I haven't told people this, but after about a number of years, I started to get a nervous reaction with psoriasis all up my legs and on my eyes.
Because of the stress.
Yes.
Because of
I didn't know it was that, but I got it. I just thought, it's getting older and everything. But within 2 months of not being president, it all disappeared. So there's a lot of stress with it and a lot. And it's hard. But I did feel that I was giving something back.
Yes,
So that was the British Council.
And then just a little bit question to that. So obviously then when you stood down, because you give so much energy to make things better, to things you believe should be better and right. And then when you stand down, how does that feel? Do you still not feel like, oh, he's not doing what I want to do, the new president? Does it feel a little bit strange?
Well,
Do you still not want to be involved?
I'll tell you that answer when we're not on the camera, okay?
I'm sure, no, but I think that's
Actually,
normal.
it's a huge relief to start with, because the next president, you talk to them and they ask for advice, so you're a bit involved.
You try to help them a little bit.
Yeah.
They'll come up with questions that only you can answer.
Well,
So
you
you
give them
do
advice.
get involved.
And then you become vice president of WDC.
Well, what happened with that was, Robin Short, I was a delegate for the British Dance Council on the World, at the AGM for the World Cup. And Robin Short, who was the president, decided to retire. And the British Council president said to me, well, you'll have to stand for this because I'm too old. So, and remember, I wasn't president, I hadn't been president of the British Council then. So that's how I stood for the presidency, and I didn't get it. I lost it by 4 votes to Carl Boyer. But that was okay, that's part of it. Like, you get tuned to that as a competitor, don't you? Yeah. So that was that. But I was advised, if you're standing for president, and maybe you're happy to be vice president, stand for president, and if you lose that, you're very likely to get the vote for vice president. So I stood for that, but I also put up for vice president in those days there wasn't all the vice presidents they have now. So that's how I became vice president. And that was the same. I mean, I tried everything I could to put what I believed in an honest way. I don't say everything I think is right, but it is done from the heart for the good of dancing, because of what dancing gave me. So that's how I did that. And then I virtually stepped down from that. That's when they made me honorary, because then I became president of the British Council, and I don't believe you can do all that. Yes. And I put all my efforts then into the British Dance Council. Right. But I enjoyed it. I mean, the British Council today has a lot of difficulty with government bodies, much more than I had. But I had quite a few problems. For example, when the WDSF, as they are now, wanted to split from being all together, and then they were going to ban couples coming to England, I flew to Barcelona to see their president on a number of occasions, all at my own expense, to try and get him to see that, you know, it wasn't good for dancing, it wasn't right. So he then said, well, we won't interfere with the British, UK or international because of their history. I said, will you put that in writing? And he put it in writing to me. So I came back to the British Council, and when I got the letter. And also, remember saying just before World War II, when the British Prime Minister went to meet Hitler, and he got out of the plane, Hitler had said they won't attack England. He got out of the plane and brought a piece of paper, held it up like that. And I did the same at the British Council, lifted it up, and his words were, and I used them, peace in our time. 3 weeks later, there was World War II, and a couple of months later, so...
All your hard work, really, at that came to nothing.
You try.
So the sort of one of the, towards the end of the interview, questions parenthood. So now obviously you were parents of two beautiful girls, and then now you have a grandchild? Or
we have two.
Sorry, yes, two.
Yes.
So how is it different to be grandparents to compare to parents? How are you enjoying that?
Well, I have to say we don't see either of them that much. Our eldest granddaughter, which is Julie's daughter, she's now 23. She's trained, she did
she's into musical theatre. Done it all her life. She took a BA at university, got good results and everything, and she was then coming onto the market for a job which is very difficult at the best of times, and COVID hit it, and she's in that sort of state.
So at the moment she's totally in
maybe
limbo.
Any great grandchildren on the horizon?
Well, no, I don't think so at this stage, but she's still desperate to try and live her life to what she's always wanted to do, which is be on the stage. But you know, with COVID, it's all sort of come to a standstill at the moment. She went for an audition a couple of weeks ago. There were 5 places for this position in the show. 500 people turned up. Wow. Well, I mean, you've got to be something really special to get that job. So I think that's a bit disheartening at the moment.
And the little one?
The little one is 8 years old. That's Stacey's son. And he, at this moment, has COVID.
Oh.
So they're all self-isolating at home. He's got spots everywhere and COVID problems. But, you know, life's what it is at the moment. You know, we're all having to live with these different things.
But as a family, I think as parents, you want your children, you want to give your children the best you can.
Yes.
And we felt we did that with our daughters. Then as grandparents, you have the same thing, but really you step back a little bit from that, because that's the parents. They're yours, but they're not yours.
Of course. Yeah.
And also with grandparents, you can give them back.
But also, neither of them live that close to us. It's not like they're around the corner.
They're closer than they were.
The one lot are living in Peterborough, the family, whereas Jericho has now come to London to try and get her work on the go. Stacey lives near Camberley in Surrey, but the other end
40
of
minutes
Surrey.
away.
Yes.
So
And
that's
they're busy
40
and got
minutes
their job.
away.
Yes.
But
But
we've
we're
got-
on the phone all the time and we see them
Yeah.
every so often,
Yeah.
and that's lovely.
And when your little grandson says, "Bye, love you lots," and puts the
Oh,
phones down,
that's-
yeah.
Or he phones up and says, "My football team's doing better than your football team." That's
He
always
supports
sweet.
Manchester United,
and
and I
you?
support Spurs, Tottenham.
Oh.
So
But
we
that's
have
quite
banter
cute.
there. Yeah.
Yeah,
He's
quite
a football mad. So, yeah, we've touch wood.
Been-
Our
We've been
life has
lucky.
been. I mean, we've had our ups and downs,
Yes, of
only because she doesn't do what I tell her to. But other
But
than
I'm
that,
And that's not going to happen
Yes.
now. After how
But
many
so-
years? 50 what? How many?
55 this year.
55
55
years together.
years I've put
Wow.
up with him. I think I need a medal for that.
What about me?
Oh no, you don't.
Well, it looks like from the interview that everything you listen to your wife, it's benefited you. So,
Yeah, that's true. I keep telling him that, but no.
all right.
Yeah,
So,
you do that. But for any young kids starting out in dancing, there's no substitute for hard work.
Mm.
Don't blame others for what you're not doing. Try and put it right. Work hard. Nobody gives you anything in this life. You have to work for it and then get a bit of luck, and you can go and be confident and believe in yourselves.
So of course, because the idea of this interview, not just for now, hopefully it's going to stay on YouTube forever and ever, somewhere archived for other generations in 50 years to come, in 100 years to come. And is there anything you would like to wish to those people in hundreds of years watching this video?
I hope
I
they
would-
were as lucky as we've been,
Yes,
both with our life and with our dancing, and because it gave us such a wonderful life.
but
yes,
only
you know.
a few attain that, don't they?
Yes,
There's
they
out
do.
of the thousands or millions that dance.
Yeah,
But
but it's so.
learn from history.
Mm.
People want to change things, and you have to move forward, change us,
Yeah.
but do change gradually. Learn from history. Look at because we've got a wonderful product, what we've got, and it's taken 90 years to get it to what it is.
Yeah.
So in the future, keep learning from that, change by all means, but take it gradually and believe in yourself and believe in your dream and go for it.
Beautiful words, and thank you once again, Vivienne and Len, for doing this. It's just wonderful story to listen, and all the hard work you put in and dedication and everything you've done for dancing. So thank you so very much. It was
Thank you
truly
for
a
inviting
pleasure.
us.
Thank you.
I hope it will be of interest to somebody.
Yes, I'm sure, definitely. Bye everyone.
Bye.
Till the next
Bye.
one.